Welcome to Capping Over Cocktails, a podcast that covers a new take on sports betting. Each week, we deliver you top analysis, picks, and news going on in the world of sports. Now, here's your host, Katie Mox.
Peyton Mansell, jailbreak blitz. He gets rid of it, and there's the pick. And here comes Virginia down the sideline. Deshaun Perry is going to end this game with a pick six.
Unbelievable ending.
That's the cover play for Virginia.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Capping Over Cocktails. Hopefully you've had a pretty good week so far. I am your host, Katie Mox, a self-described degenerate gambler in nice packaging, although wearing a sweatshirt tonight. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Katie Mox Bets. And of course, I am here this week and every week with my favorite cappers from TroyWins.com, Nick Raishi and Troy West. Boys, how are you doing? And what are you drinking, Troy?
Doing great. I'll be in Scottsdale tomorrow, so can't complain. And so I'm getting ready with vodka fresca, which if you haven't done vodka fresca, very refreshing, great summer drink. Doing great. Looking forward to a big week. College basketball, March Madness right around the corner. Things are going well.
I haven't had a fresca, I think, since the 90s. So good for you on that one, Nick.
I'm still cold up here in the Midwest in Michigan. We had a big snowstorm over the past couple of days, so I'm drinking a little single malt Jack Daniels here. Once it goes down, it kind of warms you up, so that's helping a little bit. But yeah, no golf for me tomorrow. Troy's the lucky one, but I'm stuck here in the Midwest for some cold weather here for the next probably couple months. So.
Yeah, don't envy you at all there, Nick. And I am drinking a Sierra Nevada wild little thing. It's a slightly sour ale, so it's actually pretty nice. All
Love
right,
that.
so cheers to you guys. Let's take our first drink.
Cheers.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get into some hot topics. Isaiah Wilson, some trouble in Tennessee. We're talking about the NFL. You know, the guy was a 29th overall draft pick, but he only had a total of 4 snaps. He was on the COVID reserve list twice. And then also he was on the injured reserve list in December, hasn't talked to the team since. GM had some pretty harsh words. He said he's going to have to make a determination on whether he wants to play pro football or not. That's on him. Nick, I'm going to kick it to you first. Do you think this is just kind of an unlucky year? We should give Isaiah a little bit of a break, or do you think he's, not being grateful for the opportunity, not stepping up, and it should go to somebody else?
Yeah, I don't know. Once you get into the NFL, I mean, it's time to be a professional. I think one of the things that is most important here is to look at, I mean, the COVID issues aside, injuries, whatever, it's the communication. And I think, they're almost going to end up doing him a disservice if they don't kind of send him a message early and really kind of play hardball and say, listen, if you can't communicate with our team, then, you can't be here. And I think that has to be a precedent set for that locker room too, that, you're not above anybody here. We're all in this together, and that's a good football team. That's a good organization. So to have someone like that in the locker room, you got to be real careful about, having that type of, character in that locker room. So one of those things, you got to send a message, if you gotta cut ties, you got to cut ties, but that's a locker room issue.
Troy, what do you think? Do you think he's going to come around, or do you think this is going to push him the wrong way?
Boy, it could push him the wrong way. There's a similar situation out here in Seattle a few years ago with the gentleman out of Michigan State, Malik McDowell, who was a defensive tackle that the Seahawks actually took, and very similar, low character guy, and then ended up getting hurt on a 4-wheel accident, hasn't played a snap in the NFL, and he was a first-round pick. This situation is very similar to me. Isaiah Wilson, like you said, 4 snaps last year, just doesn't seem to get it together. And I think it's a huge red flag, and GMs need to do a better job of drafting high character guys. An interesting quote that Bill Belichick said, he'll never draft a guy anymore that he wouldn't have a beer with after practice. And Isaiah Wilson kind of falls into that category for me, where it seems like this isn't a guy you'd probably be hanging around after practice. So sad situation. I hope he comes around. I mean, my God, you'd think the guy would want to get his big paycheck before he, starts going down this crazy path, but doesn't seem to be a lot of commitment there. And again, just goes back to those NFL GMs, the importance of really screening your players and getting high character guys, because this is a bad situation for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And to talk about Bill Belichick, obviously one of the greatest coaches of all times, not that great at drafting guys though. So maybe he should switch up his
Yeah.
theory there. All right, moving on to LeBron James. Now we're not going to talk about basketball here. We're going to talk about LeBron James and his could have been, would have been NFL career. During the 2011 NBA lockout, the 26-year-old said he had an offer to try out for the Dallas Cowboys. The Seattle Seahawks also sent him some workout clothes, invited him to work out. And James says, even though he had not played since his junior year of high school, that he would have made the NFL. Now, Troy, I'm going to kick it to you first. How ridiculous or how accurate is this statement by LeBron James about playing in the NFL?
Well, originally I thought, when he came out of high school and even college, he definitely had the body for it. He definitely had the athleticism. I thought, a tight end, a receiver, maybe a safety type. But my God, I love LeBron James. I really do. But gosh, even the other night, the guy still flops on the basketball court. I mean, the guy can't take a charge. He doesn't like to take a lot of hits. He's whining to referees all the time. So could this guy really take a shot by a Cam Chancellor or any sort of one of our top tier linebackers in the NFL? I don't know. So that's where I think it's far-fetched. As far as athleticism goes, of course, LeBron James is athletic enough to play in the NFL. I just don't know if he can handle, going in and day out and taking the hits that these NFL players take. So that to me, where I think it's kind of a fraudulent type situation. Obviously, he's got the build, he's got the speed, all that good stuff. But I just don't think LeBron James could take a slant route over the middle or a deep ball deep. I think there'd be way too much whining. We still see it in 17, 18-year career in the NBA. He's still flopping. So I think it's fraud. I don't think he could play in the NFL.
Nick, what do you think? And what position would you put him at? I read some articles today saying he'd make a great tight end at 6'9". What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, 6'9", 250. I mean, you look at a guy like Tony Gonzalez, who was a basketball player as well. I mean, he was 6'5", he was 240. I look at the 40 speed. I mean, you're clocking, LeBron at 4'6", Gronk runs a 4'6'8". Gonzalez ran a 4'4'9". So, his speed is right there. And with that size, I mean, I imagine him almost really posting up and, running, a pattern that he could just sit there in the flat. And I mean, he's a guy I think you'd be a nightmare to match up with. You match a guy, like Chancellor hitting him. I mean, that's a big frame to hit. 18 years in the league too. I mean, this is a guy that really hasn't been hurt a lot. So yeah, he's taken flops, but I think LeBron is a player that, he plays by, he plays the rules. I mean, if he can draw a whistle, he's going to draw a whistle. I don't know if it's necessarily intentional. I mean, that's a guy that, he is coming full speed ahead every time going down the court. Every time you watch, LeBron play, it's a freight train coming down the court. He looks like he shouldn't be on that court. Like he looks like he would be an unstoppable human being on the basketball court. So, put him in some pads, it's going to change a little bit, but listen, the guy's probably got good hands. I think he could play tight end without a doubt. I mean, whether he'd start or not, I don't know, but it should be fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of wish it happened. I wish that he did try out. And I thought that it's, you
Still
got to
time.
love the bravado to a certain extent. He is, one of the greatest all time in basketball, but it was just so funny to me that he was like, I would have made the team. It's like, we look at Michael Jordan. Well, he went to baseball, but he was still on a minor league team. So for you to think
Sure.
that you're just going to walk on to the Cowboys or the Seahawks or somewhere and you would have made a team, having not played since junior high school is, a little bit funny to me, but definitely agree with both of you. All right. Keeping it in the NBA, Draymond Green had some choice words for the NBA today, criticizing them, basically saying that the players put on the trading block by teams are treated unfairly. This, of course, in response to Cavaliers sitting two-time All-Star center Andre Drummond. He came out in street clothes and had to sit on the sidelines because they decided they wanted to play him. And, he points out how James Harden was criticized for wanting to leave, and AD was fined. What was it, like $400,000 or $50,000 for demanding a trade in 2019? Yet these teams can just decide to sit someone and kind of disrespect them that way, but there's really no repercussions there. Nick, do you think that he has a point? Do you think that he's being a little bit ungrateful? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, it's tough, I guess. Again, it comes back to communication. I mean, these guys, they're basketball players, and their front office doesn't even tell them when they get traded. I mean, some of these guys, they found out. DeMarcus Cousins found out in an interview after the game that he got traded. And, these guys are human beings. I mean, I know they're basketball players. I know they're paid well, but, a lot of these guys have families, they have kids. It's just not fair that, you can just, expect a guy. I mean, I know it's part of the business and that's okay. But if it's part of the business, it's got to be both ways. You got to understand a guy that doesn't like his situation in a role. If you don't like the player in that role, then the player cannot like the management or the team he's with. It's a real tough spot. I mean, I understand, not wanting to play a player because you don't want them to get hurt, because you see them as an asset and you want to be able to get something in return. But, I don't know. That's a tricky subject, but I stand by Draymond Green. Dwayne Wade had some comments as well about it too. I mean, I stand by their opinion and believe that, players should be communicated with up front so they know kind of where they sit.
Yeah, the whole shut up and play thing is kind of becoming a little bit more and more obsolete. They're definitely speaking their mind and, against the organizations. Troy, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Nick said. And we're seeing it now with Blake Griffin too, a couple big name guys playing for basement teams, but like Nick said, you got to be up front with these guys without a doubt. But to me, until you're actually traded, you should be out there playing, proving your worth, proving your value. You still got teammates on the floor. You're still getting paid to play. I get the injury thing, but gosh, if you're an athlete and you're taking the floor and you're worried about injuries, to me, that's just bogus, especially at that level of play. So it's a sticky situation without a doubt, but I get it from both standpoints. I really do. Cause I mean, if you're the GM of the team and you got to, get rid of a guy like Drummond, he just doesn't fit. He doesn't fit the salary cap, all that stuff. Of course you got to sit him. You can't take that risk. But then again, on the flip side, I really think these guys are paid to take the floor. You've got teammates, all that good stuff. So it's a tough situation. It's really tough. Gets me a little bit fired up because I think those guys should be on the floor playing until they are actually on another roster, without a doubt.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that too. All right. Speaking of big time players in the NBA, Damian Lillard. A lot of talk that, he's MVP caliber. A lot of people kind of sleeping on him. He's had an actual monster year, had a huge game against OKC. Troy, is he an MVP contender? Do you still think he's a little overlooked? How do you feel about him?
Yeah, this guy's been in my backyard now for a long time, played college basketball at Weber State and has had an incredible career in Portland. He's just overlooked. The Portland market is so small out here on the West Coast. Nobody gets the opportunity to see this guy on a daily. This Portland team's a good basketball team. They've just been banged up. They've yet to have their nucleus on the floor all year long. So, it's too early to tell, I think, if he's an MVP candidate, but the guy's just been phenomenal night in and night out. I'm excited to see if they can make another deep playoff run because they've got the talent this year with him and McCollum and all the depth that they've got. I mean, they've got Covington's playing, once he gets in rhythm, and this is a good Portland team, but I think if he was on a high market team like a New York Knicks or a Lakers or any of those teams, the Clippers, those teams that are on TV, on TNT every night, Damian Lillard's made his, he's put his name on the map. Even being in Portland, it would be amazing to see what would happen if he was on one of these big market teams. But I'd love to see him get it. I think he's just deserving of it. He doesn't have a great supporting cast right now. And like I said, small market team would be cool to see if he can do it. I think the numbers don't lie. He's putting up phenomenal numbers this year.
Yeah, he was crazy in the playoffs last year. Nick, how do you feel about him? And also, who do you think is his biggest competition?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a guy shoot the ball like this in a long time. I mean, this is going back to, Steph Curry's remarkable run. But I mean, I'd have a hard time, putting, him up against that. Right now, I think he's the best shooter in the NBA. The guy gets different types of shots too. He's not just a set shooter. I mean, this is a guy that can shoot it off the dribble. He's step back. I mean, and then he can take it to the hole too. So I mean, this guy can score really any way that he wants, shooting 93% from the line. I mean, and I look at his leadership too. I mean, he's clutch. I mean, think of the clutch threes and the clutch shots that he's hit, in his career. I mean, this is a guy last year that, he put the team on his back, when they won, 8 or 9 straight to get themselves into the playoffs. So, when Nurkic was banged up, this year McCollum's banged up, he's having to really take the brunt of the scoring load. So yeah, this is a guy, I agree with Troy, I mean, being out in Portland, he's playing a lot of 10 p.m. Eastern games. He's not getting the recognition, but he really should, because I mean, it's Dame time, as they say. As far as competition, listen, the fact that LeBron James has won 4 MVPs in 18 years, I'm like, hey, what are we doing here? I mean, I know it's the most valuable player, but I mean, this is a guy that without LeBron James, your team is nothing. I mean, you've seen when he leaves, his team is nothing. Yep. So, I mean, I could argue that LeBron James should have, 10 or 12 MVPs. So again, I mean, this year, Anthony Davis is banged up now for 3 weeks, and let's see what happens to that team now. With him out, if they don't miss a beat, then, again, if they don't look at LeBron as an MVP candidate, he's always in the top 3, but he's never winning the MVP. So I don't know. I think maybe that fuels LeBron every year because he makes a deep playoff run when Derrick Rose wins it or Giannis wins it or Harden wins it. But so LeBron would be, I think every year could be your most, your biggest competition.
Yeah. I think he was a little salty for being overlooked last year, actually, when Giannis made it.
How could you
All
not?
Right. Moving on to baseball, Clint Frazier stepping in to be the starting left fielder for the Yankees in place for Gardner. Gardner's future is a little unsure with the Yankees. He's a free agent right now. Frazier had a good season last season, kind of inconsistent in the shortened season because Gardner, of course, got most of the play. Troy, what do you think about Frazier? Is this a good move for the Yankees? Are you kind of worried about it? Should they keep Gardner?
No, I think the Yankees, they're starting to get that younger roster right now. And I think Frazier's a nice fill-in for Gardner. Gardner's starting to really age. He's shown his age. His arm's starting to deflate out in the outfield. And he's just not the same at the plate either. And this Yankees team, they're starting to get younger. I mean, this Yankees, I'll give the Yankees a lot of credit. They really went and started to rebuild through the farm system, and guys are starting to really kind of step up. And then they've really pieced it together in free agency, getting guys obviously like Garrett Cole and whatnot. But no, I think it's a good move for the Yankees, and I think they've got, I wouldn't call it a dynasty. The dynasty is right now kind of looking like it could be the Dodgers. Unfortunately, as painful it is for me to say that. But the Yankees are going to contend, and they've got a nice young nucleus. So this is the right move, getting Frazier in there and letting a guy like Gardner move on. The guy's just aging and really hasn't brought a lot to the table the last few years.
Nick, how do you feel?
I don't know. I guess I couldn't disagree more. I mean, this is a guy that's been the consummate professional. He's played in, I think, more games than any Yankee right now in the last 10 years. I mean, the guy's never hurt. He actually is. I mean, his defensive WAR is one of the tops on the team. He's a left-handed bat against right-handed pitchers. I think he's hitting something like 370 lefties against righty. I think he's a great leader. I think that's important to have. To completely, to not sign him, I think that's maybe a mistake. I think you need his leadership in the locker room if you are going to go with a bunch of young players. I think his leadership is important. And I mean, when you're the center field, I mean, you're the quarterback out there. And I mean, I think it's good to have, kind of a backup that's there. You do have the DH that's available too, if you have to, but I think you got to sign him. I think you need his leadership. And I think, it's a durable player. I think you could probably put him anywhere too. I think he could probably play some other positions. So I don't know. I think I'd keep him around.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how he does in spring training kicking off here pretty soon.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Those are our hot topics to the Capping Over Cocktails section. Bracketology. NCAA starting here pretty soon. They have revealed the projected top 4 seeds in each region. Which teams outside of those 16 could you see making a run? Nick, I'll kick it to you first.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, time out. Explain to me what bracketology means.
Well, bracketology is the, it's the science behind who gets in and who gets out and where teams go.
Yes.
So, Joe Lunardi, I think, kind of came up with that bracketology, and ESPN's kind of ran with it. So I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there were any big surprises looking at the top 4 seeds. Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, Ohio State. I think that's right on point. I look at some teams that are outside of that. I look at a Creighton that, I watched them over the weekend. They just absolutely manhandled Villanova, and they have just really good shooters. And I think when you get in the NCAA tournament, you have to look at those teams that, can shoot the ball well, because if they get hot, I mean, they can score at will. I mean, they got Zagorowski, they got Balak. I mean, these are some juniors and seniors on that team that, can really score the ball. So I would look at them. And then I watched, Loyola Chicago over the weekend, and, Cameron Krutwig is just he's a nightmare down low. I mean, the guy just looks like a huge gump inside, but I mean, he's just got great footwork. They defend the ball really well. They're really hard to score on, and they play at a pace that, you're not going to blow them out. So they're going to be in the game. And when you get into that half court basketball again, I mean, it's a guy like Crutwork that can go inside it out, has great paint presence. So those are some teams that, I think Creighton and Loyola Chicago, I would watch out for them. They're going to be in that 5-6 line, and they could do some damage in the first and second round and possibly make that second week. So.
Okay. Interesting. Troy, what do you think?
Yeah, Loyola Chicago, without a doubt, was one of the ones. And Nick didn't. I'm blanking on her name, but Mama Lou. I mean, how do you go against her, Nick? Is she still alive? By the way, I don't even know. I mean, that was a great story. And they're making their way back. I made that name up. It's not Mama Lou, but that sounded right. But that's a team.
I like it.
Yes, exactly. So no, that's definitely a sneaker. USC out here, 17-3 right now. They're in the top 25, not getting any love from anybody. That's a good basketball team, just well balanced, good big men down low. They're well coached. The Trojans are our team to be looking for. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good basketball team.
I did a little hook 'em horn first, and then I got the right one. I went to fashion school. What are you gonna do?
Then all good. Yeah, that's a good basketball team without a doubt. And then I don't want to go. I know your question was who's the outside. I actually put down a big hefty bet on Gonzaga. I just don't think anybody's touching them this year. I truly don't. That team is so well balanced. But USC, Loyola Chicago, that's a good basketball team. Nick had a good point with Creighton. UConn, still a good basketball team. This is going to be a very fun tournament. Houston, Kelvin Sampson's put together a really nice basketball team there in Houston. They're well balanced. I could see them getting, they're going to be a top 4 seed. I could see them, making a deep run. So there's a lot of teams that can win it this year, but my money's definitely on Gonzaga.
All right. So talk to me on the capping side, guys. What kind of packages or what are we doing for our TroyWins.com clients and prospective clients for March Madness? Anything you want to talk to us about?
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, right now, March Madness, we're going to do, $50 for the month, which is insane. I mean, you're getting every tournament week. I mean, if they do play an NIT, a CBI, you're going to get all the Big Ten tournament. You're going to get all the conference tournament games. And shoot, if you buy it now, you're going to get the first 2 weeks for free. So we're going to give you that. You get, if you purchase now, you're going to get from now until the end of March. So, it's a no-brainer. You're getting 6 weeks. You're less than $10 a week. So, it's a no-brainer. We've been on fire too with college basketball. Geez, Troy, where'd we go last weekend? That was insane. What a run.
Yeah, we're on a great run. No, we haven't had it. We've had one losing day since our debacle in the Super Bowl, but one losing day since the Super Bowl. So we're on like 10 of 11 winning days, right around 66%. We've been great. Nick's been one of our top college basketball cappers. We got another gentleman that's doing really good stuff. So, we're excited. Yeah. Like Nick said, you're crazy for $50 between now and the end of the tournament. You can't beat it. And as always with our service, if you're not happy with it, we got no issue giving you your money back. So definitely something to consider when you're looking out for cappers out there.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, $50 for the entire month, March Madness, basically 2 weeks free. And you heard the guys have been winning. They're not losing. They know college basketball. They are locked in. Sign up at TroyWins.com. All right, so let's talk a little strategy session for the week. Nick, you want to talk about some revenge games. What is that about?
Yeah, in the past, I used to really look at, when teams would, play a team for the second time, usually if they played them on the road and then they come back and play them at home, I would usually look to take that team at home. This year, that home court advantage just isn't there. So I think you can find some value in taking that team that had won the previous game. And you're just seeing that the better team's just winning. The home court is not a big deal. There's, at the end of the game, you're not having fans that are involved in the game. And I think looking at that, I think there's some value in the lines this year, that taking that team that won by, 10 or 15 points the first time out, taking them again, because they clearly have the better team. So I haven't been seeing the revenge play work out as it did in the past. Now that may change when fans come back, but this year I would stick with that team, that won that previous game.
All right, Troy. Any strategy for the week?
Yeah, strategy for the week. No, I'm kind of with Nick. On these back-to-backs, it's really interesting, and I think fatigue's starting to play a big factor with a lot of these teams as well. And the one thing that I truly look at right now is you've got so many teams on the bubble, especially in the Pac-12. You've got Oregon, you've got UCLA, you've got Arizona. All these teams that are on the bubble facing teams that have pretty much zonked out, nothing to gain by winning. I'm taking the teams that are on the bubble right now. I think there's a lot to be said with the teams that really have to win basketball games right now. They're coming out with a vengeance. I've seen it now multiple times. So I'm betting teams that really need those, not just the win, but those quality wins, those statement wins. It's kind of like, we talk about that in college football a lot, the statement wins to get into the playoffs. Same thing goes with college basketball. Those teams that are, go look at Joe Lunardi's rankings, go out and look at, like you mentioned, the bracketology, see who's on the bubble. I'm betting those teams down the stretch because they got the most to prove.
All right. Well, I learned an interesting strategy this week, and I want to get y'all's opinion on it because I don't know if I'm buying it exactly. But yesterday, Suns and the Nets, we had Kyrie Irving out. We had Kevin Durant out. James Harden, which, we all know you can't really rule that guy out, but he's by himself, right? And then you got a completely healthy Suns team. I took the Suns -6.5. Clearly, they were up 20 at the half, and then just all hell broke loose, or actually all of James Harden broke loose. And, they end up winning the game. And I can't tell you how many people DM'd me, messaged me, commented, well, after the fact, by the way, nobody said anything in the beginning, in the middle, in the end, not even in the fourth quarter. But after the game, I am flooded with messages about, in the NBA, if the star players are out, you always hammer that team. That's what you do. What do y'all think about this? Is that a fact? Do you hammer the team where the star players are out, or is that a ridiculous strategy? Nick?
Well, there's an old system play that I used to like in the NBA, and it's called first day of the injury. So that was always one of my plays in the NBA. First night of an injury, you see guys step up and kind of, say, I got to take on more, and they play a little bit harder. Now let's get real here. I mean, they were down 25 points, at half. And I mean, that game looked like it was all but over. So that really, in my opinion, didn't play out. James Harden just went nuts. And I think Phoenix just kind of fell asleep. They figured the game was over, but yeah, I do. I like the first day of an injury play. I mean, sometimes you get some value because the Vegas will try to trap you and say, well, shoot, Harden, Kyrie's out, KD's out. We can get people to bet on this game, and we can inflate the line a little bit. So yeah, there is some value in it a little bit. Okay. But yeah.
Troy?
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, I actually texted Nick about that this morning. That was oh my God, I had a lot of money on the Suns. And yeah, you sometimes you don't want to overthink it, right, Katie? I mean, you're on the right side. And like Nick said, he hit it right on the nose. That was a team that, you're up 20 plus points at halftime. There's absolutely no reason that they should have blown that game. And yeah, absolutely. It's an opportunity for bench players to step up and prove their point and all that stuff. But that was just a debacle by the Suns. I mean, that was a healthy Suns team. Booker's playing well. CP3 had an incredible game. Ayton's playing well. Bridges is playing well. The Suns just made me sick last night. It's like you have one guy to stop in James Harden, the only guy on the floor that can beat you, and you let him go for 36 and let him get all those clutch points down the stretch. I don't know why they weren't double teaming him or mixing up the defensive strategy, but you've got a point. I mean, it would be a very interesting stat line to see how many times teams cover when their top two star players are out. But I thought we were on the right side yesterday, Katie. I thought the Suns was the right bet.
Yeah, and we got maybe Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are out tonight. Does that mean we're hammering the Clippers? I mean, I guess I'll be interested to see. I did not put any money on that game, but I'm going to test the theory and let's see if the Clippers pull the win tonight. All right, moving on to the Mox Minute. Are sports trading cards back? Now, we're all relatively in the same age range, and I grew up collecting sports cards. Now, my brothers did. I just kind of went along with it, but I remember going to the shop, the baseball card shop. You get the packet of them, and you're sifting through to see if you get a good one. And, you kind of keep them. We had binders full of them. And then, of course, sports cards weren't cool anymore, and, we got rid of them all, and I never really took care of them anyways. And now, all of a sudden, because of the pandemic and people are staying at home, sports cards have made a huge jump back. I mean, on eBay alone, they are up 142% in the last year. And so Investment Group is spending $40 million for majority stake in a sports memorabilia firm called Golden Auctions. Now, this is the Chernin Group, who I believe also owns Barstool Sports, Fox, a lot of big media companies. But they're also backed by, Kevin Durant, Mark Cuban, and, everyone's favorite Logan Paul. Well, how do you guys feel about this? Have you held on to any of your old baseball cards? Are you kicking yourself for not keeping them? Are you getting in on the trend? I'm certainly not. And I'm still not a huge believer that this has legs and is going to last as we get into not lockdown mode. But Troy, what do you think about sports cards?
I do have tons of my cards. If you went through some of my books, you would just be blown away at some of the guys I've got, from Greg Maddux to Barry Larkin to John Smoltz. I mean, I've got some incredible cards. My biggest regret, I got rid of a lot of Pokemon cards back in the day. So I'm regretting. I'm regretting that a little bit. I'm hearing those are back, but to your point, I always think cards have a certain value to them. Like I've got a Ken Griffey rookie card, legitimately, that's worth about $8,500. But who's going to buy it for that, right? I don't know. I'll have to test the market. Cards have these values to them, but I don't think anybody's really pulling the trigger. I've seen a few guys out there selling the 1 in a million Mike Trout card and the 1 in a million A-Rod card and whatever. But I just don't think people are out there actually writing paychecks for the card. So I think right now, like you said, they're back. Maybe it's a little bit of a fad. Yes, I still got my cards, but I've never had anybody truly interested. I've posted my cards on eBay and whatnot, and I've never had anybody say, let me take those off your hands for what they're worth. So tough market, but yes, I have saved a lot of my good cards without a doubt.
Nick, what do you think? I mean, we got some big names that are saying, yes, this is not going anywhere. Cards are back.
Yeah, I used to always say, if you've heard about it, you're already too late. Like if you've heard about it and you're not invested yet, you're already too late. So when people say the value of these sports cards, they're saying A+ graded mint condition card is worth that. The problem is there's very few of them that are like that. So people get sucked into buying these boxes and packs of cards thinking they're going to get one of these cards, when in reality they may get one, but it may not grade out that, what at the price of one of these really high, what one, really expensive one might go for. So you got to be real careful, and you got to take really good care of them. I have the Michael Jordan rookie 86 Fleer Premier. It's an inch thick, case right now. I've had it since I was, a kid. My dad had it, passed it down to me. But that's just one of those things that, it's not going anywhere, because that's a piece of me that I'm, unless I absolutely needed the money, I'm not selling it. But so you got to be real careful. I mean, I think if, people buy at the top right now, I think they're going to get burned, because just like me, I mean, 10 years ago, these cards were worth nothing, and it's, if you don't sell at the right time, you're going to get stuck holding the bag, they say, is with stocks. So.
Well, and I think for anything to really take off and to have legs, you have to get the younger generations involved. And I just don't see kids that are, obsessed with their iPhones and, iPads, and, even the way that the younger generations consume sports is much different than we do. They don't have teams that they're, allegiant to, and they don't have, players, or they do have players. They don't have teams that they like. They just like players, and they just watch highlights. So, for them to go and buy a card and to go to a store, I just don't really see that happening. But I'll be curious to see. All right. So if you have your sports cards, you're in on something pretty cool. If you want to get more and hop in on the action, we have some varying degrees of how we feel about that. But that is the end of the Mox Minute. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week, and we will see you next week. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Have a good week.